Good. All right. So it's 12:33. We are convening the special board meeting of the MRC. Today, we're going to continue our discussion about the rebranding with MRC. We did previously discussed some names that fell within the MRC guidelines. We asked Design Lab to go back and come up with some names that didn't follow those so that we could look at our options both ways. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jess and let her present what they've come up with.
Thank you, Aaron. So just a quick recap. In our last meeting, we discussed the results of the focus group, which pointed to a need for a rebrand of some kind. We talked about a couple different options, and the board was split on whether or not to, as Aaron mentioned, use MRC with different words or go in a new direction. Today, we're going to talk about the potential of that new direction. We have some names to run by you and a case study to look at. So what I'd like to do is introduce my partner, John Hafford. He has a few comments on what a rebrand would mean in terms of choosing a new name and developing a new logo, things to keep in mind, as well as a few case studies. And this will be quick because we want to get to the actual list of new name options. But we'd like to kind of frame it up for you guys and things to keep in mind as you think about these new names. So John, take it away. He'll share his screen and discuss.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to, kind of discuss the anatomy of a brand. We do a lot of this sort of thing where we're taking a concept and building creating the building blocks for a successful brand deployment and then management later, right? So a lot of times people don't think really about a logo mark and how important it might be. Obviously, the name is essential to having a brand that's going to be well placed in the market. But the naming is important. And there are a lot of things to consider when you're doing that, like a concise, shorter name is always better. If you can come up with a name, if you're fortunate enough to come up with a name that can kind of cue up the audience as to what you're offering, that's really important as well. And then the logo mark. So I wanted to go through a couple of really nice examples of logos and, well, names and logos, and then kind of show you some context, because some of the things that you should be thinking about as we get into this process, it looks like we're going to be doing some logo mark development and probably complete logo, new name, whatever the group decides, but some things to think about. So let me share my screen, and I'll run you through a couple of really good examples of a logo and logo mark. So we're all familiar with General Electric, but the things that you may not be thinking of when you think of a logo and a logo mark is, how do we, what does the mark look like in a tab for the web, right? So it's if we can create a mark that will reduce really well, you'll over the course of working with this logo and logo mark, you'll be reducing it down to very tiny. You'll want to have the logo mark, if it's strong enough, at some point the brand can stand alone, the logo mark can stand alone, and there'll be places where you'll use the logo in ways that you're probably not thinking of. So let me give you another example of that. So in here, this is the website. This is the logo and how it appears, which really nice, powerful, impactful logo, right? And then it reduces down really nicely to a web icon, which is something that you're probably not thinking about, or other promotional products. So whatever we develop, we want it to be as clear and concise as possible. And then again, this is the logo mark standing on its own on the side of the building. So that's a great example of a really good logo mark that's well used and well placed. So another good example that I wanted to share with you is North Face. Very, very strong, clean logo with, these unique marks that are very simplified, but also very powerful. And then this is how it reads as their web icon. You can see that element is really nice as a web icon. So that means if you're doing promotional products like pens or whatever, it should shrink down really nicely. And then this is how it looks on the blown up. So again, really good example of a nice logo and logo mark. This is a logo, an example of a logo that we could have pulled up 100 different samples, but when we built this, we built it with, all of these things that we're talking about in mind. You think of a PowerPoint presentation, we wanted to have a really strong logo mark, which is this, but we pulled this A, so that we could use it in ways like this as a web icon, really nice standalone element. And then, you don't think about like PowerPoint presentations. There are times in a PowerPoint presentation where you don't want to have the entire logo. You want to have the brand present. So, if you look down here in the lower right corner, this logo mark serves to represent your brand in all these places. So whatever we do in the end, just be thinking about, we're going to want as simple but as powerful a mark as possible. And these are 3 good examples. This logo and brand, we recently won a communicator award with a gold communicator award. And I have absolutely no doubt that if we move forward, especially if we go from scratch, with a new brand, I have no doubt that we can do the same for this project. But those are some of the principles that we want to all keep in mind as we move forward. So anatomy of a brand. And then obviously, some of the other elements that you'll be thinking about as we go, the photography is really important. And all of these elements will come together like a soup to create your flavor. But, good photography, good logo mark, obviously a great name is really important. And then, we'll get into the finer details of fonts and elements that make these things up. So I wanted to share that with you as kind of a base for this discussion as we move forward.
Thanks, John.
Does anyone have any questions for John before we move forward with the list? No? Okay, let me pull up the list then. And we will start the discussion.
Drum roll.
Okay, get the right screen in place here. Okay. And so again, just to kind of remember, we want a name that is hopefully short, memorable, distinct, something we can brand, something that can be fun if we need it to be. It can flex to different situations. The other major waste management organization in the state is EcoMaine. We love that. I mean, it's a great name. It's short, it's memorable, it's well branded. And so as we think about what this name will be, keep in mind that it doesn't have to be completely descriptive of everything the organization does. We have a lot of tools in our tool belt to help convey that. So we have a tagline, remember, we have an icon. And so the name doesn't have to be the be all and end all, but it does have to be memorable. It does have to be somewhat descriptive and
think of like Nike and brands like that where you know, the name itself has absolutely nothing to do with it. That's one way to go. But you know, the tendency is to try to be descriptive in the name, but it doesn't have to be at all.
Okay. So so we had dozens of names that our team came up with. We have a boneyard of names that didn't make the cut. This is still a lot of names to consider. We also put together whether or not the .com, the .org was available. So if it has an NA, that means it's not available. If there's an X there, it means it is available. We do prefer that the .com is available, that both are available actually, but if it's only the .org, we can work with that too.
Jess, just one comment
Yeah.
on Renew Main. It's actually .net and .co are available. The .com is not available. My bad on that.
Okay. All right. So first we have recyclemain.org is available. I know in the last meeting, as we discussed new words for MRC, there was some discussion around whether or not recycle should be part of it as a word because it's kind of, restrictive in its definition. But we did include it here because it's a really strong name. There's Wasteworks Maine. Both .com and .org are available. We think that's a really strong name. Greener Maine is also very strong. Derigo Waste. Surprisingly, the .com is not available. I thought that would have both. Renew Maine, as John mentioned, .net, .co. Maine Renewables, Waste Hub Maine, Maine Waste Services, Regen Maine, Cogen Maine. Waste Tech is pretty good. Green Tech Renewable and Green Tech Maine. These were the top few choices that we thought we should present to you. Any comments? Anything jump out at anyone as a great name or some that should be tossed? Bob?
I like Waste Hub Maine and I like Waste Tech Maine. Hub because we've been talking about being a hub and Mike has talked about hubs for collection purposes and perhaps other ones.
Mm-hmm.
And tech, because that kind of helps define that we're on the cutting edge of the technologies that are being employed to process waste. But I have no axe to grind. But those two kind of stood out at me for being
I like those two.
Let me just say this too about the presentation of these words. Most of the names that would have Maine, we would be emphasizing like the word, let's say recycle Maine. Recycle would be emphasized, and then Maine would be like probably positioned underneath in a smaller font or with some kerning so that the real emphasis would be on like the word Renew Maine or Waste Hub. And then eventually, you know how that goes once people become familiar with your brand, the Maine is there, but it's kind of, referred to as Waste Hub. So there would, we could impact the way those words are perceived in the way we present it.
Jess, I almost would recommend that you go through, like, maybe go through the ones that .com are available on and possibly a process of elimination, that type of thing.
So are you saying that if the .com is not available to not?
Yeah, I think the board should focus on that first and see if they like any of those names. If you're doing a process of elimination, start with
Okay,
that .com aren't available. I'm sorry, I didn't raise my hand.
that's
Karen?
okay.
Well, I'm supportive of that process, and I would nix all of the ones where the .com is not available. I'm not keen on any of those, personally.
I'm not necessarily fond of Renew Maine, but I kind of like the idea of renewme.com.
Oh,
I know I'm just throwing a freaking axe in the works, but sorry.
that's good.
What did I do? Oh, I see. This is just. John, do you want to check and see if Renew Me is available?
Yeah.
I just
John's
looked, it is.
both.
I didn't check .org.
Okay, great. Well, then let's put that in there too.
That's only one vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
And
good
that-
suggestion,
And who said that? Was it Aaron?
Aaron, yeah.
I'm seeing that I'm seeing that Renew Me is renewme.com is registered.
Throw that out there.
Any other? Belle, what do you think?
I don't have any particular dog in the fight for any of the ones that don't have a .com available. I kind of liked Derigo Waste a little bit because Derigo, I think, means we lead.
It does.
And it is technically registered, but it seems to be registered by a company that wants to sell it to you.
Mhm,
Not super fond of entering into negotiations for that type of thing, though.
Yeah,
mhm.
one thing I would say on that is if there's a name that really pops and everybody thinks this suits our needs, then that really becomes a minor expense. Like you think about $800 for a URL, it sounds like a lot, but if it helps you, enables you to have the name that you want, that's going to penetrate your audience, then I really like take a minute and consider that.
Here are some that we saw that did have a price tag. So Sustainable Solutions, Waste Hub without Maine, it was 8,000. Maine Resource Recovery Coalition, which that came from the last meeting where it was a new name. But still sort of sounded like MRC. It would be MRRC. That's available for 1,500. And then Clean Maine, 5,500. So
If you were to do Waste Hub, that is such a concise, compact, wonderful name. I mean, $8,000 sounds like a lot, but in the big picture of what you'll be doing over the next decade, is it really that cost prohibitive? And again, 8,000 would be the number that we're seeing now. I'm sure it could be negotiated down to probably several thousand by the time we're done.
Well, and then there's the option of just using Waste Hub Maine. And then as you brand it, Maine becomes a secondary element and it's known as Waste Hub. That's quite catchy.
Yep.
What about the Regen, Maine, Cogen? They're kind of word smashes, but they're short, memorable. Karen? Did you have a comment, Karen?
She's muted.
Sorry.
Oh.
I'm not a fan. I think they're too limiting, and I think they evoke a certain thought in people that might not be positive.
Okay.
Like cogen to me means burning, and like I don't know what people think about regen, but
I'm of the same mind as Karen. I don't like either of those myself.
Okay.
I agree. They sound like they're electricity producing entities and we're not.
Mm-hmm.
Also pretty generic.
Yeah.
I agree with Val. I like Derigo. I wish Derigo could be available in some form or fashion in the name. I think it would be, as far as artwork goes, it probably could be something that would translate well. But I also agree with Karen that anything that doesn't have .com shouldn't be an option. And I don't care for regen or cogen either.
Are we being too quick to disregard the .org? I mean, we're a nonprofit and that designates nonprofits, generally speaking. If I see a .org, I know it's a nonprofit. And if it were DirigoWaste.org, I like that.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of our questions is, are we going to be the main URL will be housed as a .org? Is that right? So that's definitely something to consider, because .com is really normally more for commercial operations. Although if you can get the .net and the .com, it's worth it to buy those things and
Exactly.
point them.
Yep.
Karen?
I just wanted to clarify that when I said I was not interested in any of the ones where .com was not available, it was because I wasn't a fan of the name, not because the .com was not available. But I also wanted to say that I was intrigued by the tech modifier. I thought that was kind of catchy and interesting. And initially, I was not so much of a fan of the hub, because I'm thinking Grubhub. It's kind of seems to me a little bit more, trendy, time specific, something that might not last through the ages, this hub idea. But at the same time, the whole hub and spoke, this idea that we are the hub for this area of the state for waste services. I think you really could do a lot with that. So I would, I'm interested in that as well. And I do have a little bit of reservation about using green in the name. I think there's pros and cons. Again, I think it's something that some people would immediately might be turned off by. But then again, that is kind of like what we're trying to evoke. But I think waste tech is kind of might get you to both places, because you're sort of doing something technical and different with waste than you might normally otherwise. And so that can be, you can do a lot with that in terms of whether it's equipment or mechanical or even business wise, in addition to environmental factors of things that you're doing differently with waste.
Thank you, Karen. Belle?
I did look up Dirigo Green Tech, which is available on both .com and .org. I can understand Karen's reluctance on the green, because it can send people off, but I think waste can also do the same thing. And I don't want us to be branded as waste has such a negative connotation in however you're dealing with it, whether it is waste that you're getting rid of or you're being wasteful. It doesn't give me the warm and fuzzies. Although I don't I mean, Dirigo Waste Tech or whatever, I'd be fine with that too. But I would prefer to lean more towards we're doing good things with your municipal solid waste and push more on the green side of things versus on the waste side of things. I don't love Waste Hub. A lot of it, mostly because of the same way that Karen felt about it, because of the Grubhub, a lot of like co-work spaces are branded as hubs. It just doesn't feel like the right market niche for us. But nothing so far is giving me a yes, that's what I want to be. Although I think Dirigo Works, it already exists. I think that is an already existing thing.
Thank you, Bill. Steve, then we'll go Tony.
No.
I kind of like the waste tech, and I do like the name of Durago as well. So why not a Durago waste tech? I mean, you get the best of both worlds. That's just my 2 cents.
Thank you, Steve. Tony?
I agree about the word green in any moniker. I can live without green. And like Steve, I do, and others, I like Waste Tech Maine. And I don't have a problem with the word waste being in there. That's what we're processing, is waste. And maybe I'm my Zoom was gone, so I had to start all over. That's why I'm late. But I like the Waste Tech Maine.
I just want to add, I'm a big .com fan. I understand that .org is nonprofit, but I think people, like, throughout my career, I've been to a lot of seminars when it comes to analytics and Google and everything else. And I think some people automatically just put in .com when they're doing a search and that type of thing. So, I mean, I don't think it's a stopping point, but I definitely am a .com fan. It'd be nice to own the .com too with whatever we do. Tony? You're muted, Tony.
Oh, if we're keeping score here, Steve liked Waste Tech or Deergo Waste Tech, but he did mention, didn't you, Steve?
Yes, I just think that the waste tech, I mean, like you say, that is what we're handling. There's no,
Yes.
I don't think you can actually sugarcoat that, whether it's Durago waste tech, Maine waste tech. I mean, I think that's kind of catchy. That's all.
Yep. I agree. Thank you.
Aaron?
Yeah, I throw in another vote, like everyone else has said the same thing, but the green is too much associated with greenwashing nowadays, so against that. Honestly, not a big fan of tech. Just, I went to a PFAS meeting last week, and room full of hippies, and I can just see them being like completely against it just because of the word tech. But the more I hear Deergo Waste Tech, the more I like it. And I know that's not even up there, is it? Somebody threw it out though. I can't remember if it was Steve or who, but something I'd put my support behind.
Yeah, it was Steve. I could do that too.
Karen?
I just want to throw my vote in for including the word waste in the name, since, as others have mentioned, that is what we do. One of our perennial forever struggles has been to explain what it is that we do, and to not evoke that somehow, that is our core thing. No matter what we're going to be doing, it's somehow going to be involved with waste, and be guaranteed. I don't see us getting into like investments or something like that, but I mean, so yeah, so the Dirigo Green Tech is, like, to me, it just seems like another startup company, doing some kind of out there kind of green technology thing. I feel positively about including waste in the name somehow. And I have to say, I hate to be a grouch, but I'm not a big fan of Dirigo. And I'd be interested from our experts to know, like, if it was something like Dirigo Waste Tech, like, would it end up becoming just Waste Tech, or would it end up, like, what would be like the shorthand for it? Because I like the idea of being able to encapsulate it in a short, like, quick little blip that captures who we are and what we do, and people understand it. So.
Well, so if you did go with Waste Tech Maine would probably drop away and you would just have Waste Tech, whether that additional word is Derigo or Maine. I mean, it depends on how you build the brand. John, did you have a comment too?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that Derigo Waste Works and Waste Tech are available to .org and .com. I do too. I like the hub aspect of things. You know, the waste hub is very descriptive. I mean, you're getting a lot of mileage out of those two words combined. And although in some ways it's trendy, it also helps to make your brand more current, which is in some ways valuable.
Bob, then Tony.
Really,
Oops.
I'm sorry.
Okay, I did say I liked Waste Hub. I'd like my name included with that. I agree with John. I think visually, there's a lot more you can do with Waste Hub as a name than you can with tech, which is kind of dry and complicated. But that said, I think the ones that we're discussing are doable. I just think visually Waste Hub may offer more opportunities.
I can see that as well. I mean, I think already I'm rolling it around in my mind that everyone would just call it Waste Hub. You know, that I think that would be a natural progression to just call it that.
Thank you, Paula. Tony?
We've talked about, the more we talk, the more I hear. I can live with Waste Hub because we've talked about the spoken wheel and making MWS the hub of the spoken wheel. So I can live with that as well as Dirigo Waste Tech down below.
Thank you, Tony. Aaron?
Same thing. I'm coming around. It's like Paula and Tony. That waste hub is starting to grow on me in the last 5 minutes. Thanks.
I just wanted to add that I put the word of in there, Waste Hub of Maine. I also am on board with that and a couple of the others, but I like Waste Hub of Maine. Val?
There's a company out there already that is Waste Hub. So if we're wanting to consolidate the name to Waste Hub, it would be, they're a national company. They're industrial byproducts and energy. So they're doing something very similar to what we do already.
Where are they located, Belle?
Their website, I just posted the website there. The website does not indicate a location. I think they're like an engineering firm, perhaps. So, but I'm just saying it is
It exists.
we facilitate contracts between buyers and transporters to build a new logistic network for your waste stream.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's very close to what we are doing.
Yeah.
And even if we tag on Waste Hub of Maine or Waste Hub Maine, but we keep trying to consolidate ourselves to Waste Hub,
We're in trouble.
I feel like there could be the potential for a lot of confusion with that.
Yeah, that's the next part of this process is once we have a few names, kind of doing some research and finding out, who's using the names and what categories they're operating in to make sure there's no conflict. But
Thanks, Belle. That's
definitely.
a great catch.
And
Yeah.
also, I think, the more you guys talked about how great Waste Hub sounded, I was like, it sure does sound great. I wonder if somebody else thought that too. So .com and .org, I think we have to have both, because perhaps we brand ourselves as .org, or that's our primary, but I think we have to have a redirect from .com. Exactly how Mike said, people put in .com as a default, so you have to be able to switch to that.
Thank you, Bill. Karen?
Yeah, I do agree with Belle that it's very problematic because if people just go search waste hub, they're going to come up to
Right.
the wrong place.
Yeah.
And not be redirected because they're not going to put in waste hub Maine or whatever, you
Mhm.
know, so. But on the counter to that, waste hub, I like better than tech because waste hub is kind of like a place, it's like home as opposed to waste tech. It's kind of like an item or something. You're not quite sure if you just say waste tech, you're not quite sure exactly what you're talking about, but
Mhm.
Keep in mind, we threw out a ton of names because there were similar conflicts where it's really difficult to find words that you can get the .com and the .org on.
Yeah. Tony?
Tony, I'm sorry. I was Googling names.
How about just plain Dirigo Waste? Dirigo
have-
Waste Services.
Sounds like a hauler.
Sounds like a what?
Sounds like a hauler to me. Karen?
well, what about Waste Works Maine? Split between hub and tech.
I'd really like to have the word. What was that? You said Karen, Maine what? Maine Works, Maine? No.
Waste
Works,
Works.
number
Yeah.
2 on
.com and .org are
Oh.
available on that Wasteworks Maine.
Unless, Belle, are you looking up to see if there's a national Wasteworks?
There's
Is there?
many. So
Yeah.
Wasteworks, there's like Wasteworks Eco, there's Wasteworks, Wasteworks In, there's Duke University Prep, like we'd have to really work hard to get our results at the top of a search page, I think.
The,
I'm sorry, Jess.
no, the upside of there being a lot of Wasteworks out there is at least, you know, we wouldn't be, it wouldn't be a copyright infringement or a infringement if we used Wasteworks Maine. I mean, there would be a little bit of competition in searches, but
And I mean, you know, there's always you look into the trademark, that's an important part of it too, at the end of the day. If to make sure nobody has officially claimed the combination of words in your category.
Bob?
Yeah, I'm not really too hung up on duplicating or coming close to duplicating other domain names. And the reason is that, and I had this problem when I ran my company. I started out as Boston Jojoba, then became Jojoba Company, and there was a Jojoba Australia that I had to worry about. And at the end of the day, you develop an audience and people bookmark your website because they're familiar with you and you've done your job. You've taken the brand and you've made it work. And if you do that, the domain name problem kind of goes away because you've established your individuality with your logo, with your domain name, and with what you do and the area you're serving. So I'm not as hung up with Waste Hub or Waste Works, and I think both of those are good names. They kind of describe what we would like to be doing. And I just thought I'd say that.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Tony?
Excuse me, based on what Bob just said, I like Waste Hub Maine.
Thank you,
As
Tony.
the new name.
Melissa?
You guys have a lot of thoughts today. So I like Waste Hub, and I'm not like Bob, I'm not concerned about the search. I think when we use the internet now to search, we pretty much always put in something to resonate, just not the name. Like if I was to look it up, I would probably put Waste Hub Maine, because the internet is so vast now that it's really impossible to try to get just a broad Google search. So if I was to look up waste for the state of Maine, I would put Waste Maine, you know. So my vote is for Waste Hub.
So I just Googled other names for hub, and I put in the full name in an AI software I have, and Maine Waste Connection came up for names. So, but I don't want to muddy the waters.
I like it without the of, sorry, Mike. I like just
fine.
Waste Hub Maine.
And I agree with Paula. So just plain Waste Hub Maine.
Karen?
Yeah, me too. No of. Nobody's going to think to put that in the web name and that kind of thing.
Aaron?
I'm gonna fall in with the Waste Hub. I think most searches come up with local results first nowadays, so you're gonna come up with that local, even if you don't put in Maine. Yeah, I'm behind that one.
Karen?
So I'm curious, sort of what's the next step? It sounded like the goal was maybe to leave with a couple options today that could be researched further, or I guess maybe a design lab might have some ideas about what we might be able to do to pare this down further, or
Yeah,
Yeah.
so once this group decides on, your top 2, top 3 maximum, then we would do the next phase of research to find out if there's a copyright or a trademark on that name combination. If there's another, I mean, for us, normally is there another company operating in the state of Maine with that name? Usually nationally, we don't worry too much. And almost any name combination you come up with these days, there's someone else, there's a company with the exact same name or something similar operating somewhere in the world. So we're not too worried about that. But in the state of Maine, where your corporate name is registered, you can't have a duplicate with another corporation in the state. So we would do that level of research. At that point, if the results were clean on the name and the name was unencumbered, then we would begin the process of logo development and build the brand.
Bob?
Yeah, I would strongly suggest that if the name is clean, we get it. And bite the bullet, pay what we have to and get it and be done with that part of it. Because when people find out that you're doing this, they'll jump in before you and end up
Yeah.
selling it to you. God knows what they'll do, but
Mhm.
yeah.
Karen?
well, I would just like to put my solid vote behind the concept of going with an entirely new name and rebrand. I really have no interest in going back to the MRC and trying to come up with some convoluted acronym to match that. My 2 cents.
Great.
I have to be bold.
Bob, you gave us,
I'm sorry.
no, please go ahead.
If we're giving like top 3 choices, I would probably choose any of the 3 that include, well, I guess there's 4, but Wasteworks Maine, Waste Hub Maine, or Waste Tech Maine. Those would be my 3 choices, I guess. And I think Wasteworks Maine could be. I think that could translate well artistically because of the W's and the M and, you know, with logo creation or whatnot, but those are my three choices.
Paula, Wasteworks Maine, Waste Hub Maine, and what was the other one?
Waste Tech.
Waste Tech.
I'm in line with that as well. With Waste Hub Maine, top of the list.
Okay, that
Karen,
was Tony?
That was Tony, I'm sorry.
Okay, sorry.
Karen,
I would agree with that.
Okay.
And I don't know if I quite have a top one. I guess it would be either Waste Hub or Wasteworks Maine, either one of those.
Aaron,
I'm behind a total rebrand with Karen. Waste Hub's my number one, Wasteworks is my number two. I'm not a fan of Waste Tech.
Bob,
I agree with Aaron and Karen. And I'd go with Waste Tech if we had no other choice.
looking for hands. Okay. Anybody got
Bill,
hands?
what are your thoughts?
I think it is a mistake to do Waste Hub, but I don't feel strongly enough about it to, you know, throw a monkey wrench in the works, and I would be happy to go along with it if that ends up working out. I don't really have a top three. I'm fine with any of the ones that have been mentioned.
Steve,
I think Waste Hub makes sense, but I think it was Bob that said if it's available, I think you should grab it. So, I mean, if that's everyone's top choice, I think that if it's available, I think we should grab it.
We've heard from everyone but Jonathan. Silently analyzing.
Well, since I was called out, of course, I'm not on the board, but I'm the counsel to the board. But I think to the extent I have some leeway, I think I understand and tend to agree just on the basic concept of how about a new name versus trying to fit it in with the old acronym. I think that makes some sense. You know, from my personal perspective, nothing on the page kind of, I'm echoing Bell here, it doesn't kind of jump out and say, aha, that's what it is. At least from my initial reaction. But not a name, but the things that would be important from my perspective or to think about is, you know, I think of sustainability, I think of stewardship and kind of local government municipalities, and it's hard to find something that captures all of that with obviously with the waste. But I think some of the names are touching on some of those points. But to me, I think of, you know, this is a long term, and I think I'm getting older now, but some level of sustainability or something signifying that's there, and that's a very important concept, I think would be attractive, particularly for the younger generations that are coming. I've seen that in different contexts where it might be an old traditional industry that might be doing really neat stuff, but it still has these old connotations of, oh, it must be old and dirty, which is not true. So, you know, the random thoughts to me are like a muni waste or a sustained muni waste or things of that nature. But I think it's moving that direction. But I like the names that I think people are gravitating towards, but it just, nothing has kind of jumped out quite yet. Maybe it's a combination, say, yeah, that one feels like the right one.
Yeah, we played around with the Muni thing.
We did.
And but keep in mind, as we build a brand, there's so many different elements from the language that you use, your headlines, your photography, video, all of those things come together. And a lot of times people want to have everything that the brand is going to be housed in a name and a logo. And that isn't the way it works. Normally, the logo is housed in some piece, whether it's a website or a PowerPoint presentation or a slick of some kind, where all these things come together to kind of, express what this thing is about.
Tony?
The word, we have municipal review committee. That's like a block long, that title. Something sustainability, something is also a block long. The waste hub main, somebody might have said it. It's just, as Tim Sample would say, it's a snappy answer. It works. But I just think the word sustainability is too long. And like, I'm sorry, John said, there'll be other places that we can push that, point that out, amongst other things.
Bob?
I'm taking myself way back here now, back into the 70s and 80s, but I can remember taking a course in marketing, and the classic example of melding marketing, image, logo. I mean, it just all came together in classic form. What's the product called? Legs. And you probably can still buy it today. I don't buy nylon stockings, but the package was the form of an egg.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the name it was everything there. And Waste Hub comes very close to doing that. It just seems to tie it all together if it's available. And it makes sense to do it. That's kind of where I come from in my viewing the possibilities around that name. Anyway.
Remember too, I have a tagline that we will pair with this. And so we can deepen the brand through that tagline, and we can use, words that invoke sustainability. We may not use that word because it's so long, but there's a beautiful combination out there in a tagline that will help to add another layer of description to Wastework Maine, or Waste Hub, whichever, Waste Tech, whichever name gets through the hurdles.
So can I ask what the three are? What were the other two besides Waste Hub Maine?
So everyone's on board, Bella's agnostic. Wasteworks Maine, Waste Hub Maine, and Waste Tech Maine. Those were the three that rose to the top. And I think Aaron mentioned he didn't like Waste Tech Maine, but is on board with 1 and 2. Did I get that right, Aaron?
And I'm sorry, one more time, Jess. What was after Wasteworks Maine?
Waste Hub Maine.
Yeah, what's the other one?
Waste Tech Maine.
So I just bought wastehub.com.org.info. I bought Maine spelled out in ME spelled out. So we have both those secured now for Waste Hub. And after we get off, I'll work on the other ones.
Okay.
Great.
So if there's consensus, I don't know if we need to take a vote on these top three, and then I'm not sure how your process works, but I think the next logical step on our part will be to do the research necessary to make sure that these names are clean, that we can use them, they're available. And then at that point, the board can choose the name, the top name that you prefer.
I think what we're doing, I'll refer to John, is the board is giving you direction to further do your due diligence on these names.
Okay, great.
And, you know, we'll come back and with what you find. I mean, the URLs are fairly inexpensive so far, so I'll just go ahead and secure them from this point, and we can always sell them back if needed. And then we'll have another meeting, and I don't know what you want to do, if you're already working in the back room on logos or that type of thing, if you can, you know, start doing some work on those that mirrors with these three names. But unless John or the board tells me different, I think the direction is to go finish due diligence on these three names and come back to us with your findings.
Yeah, we just real quick, we'd probably wait to nail down one name before we do the logo development,
Okay.
Yeah.
because they'll all be different.
Yep.
I think that makes sense. I think that's what our goal was today, to give you, narrow it down and give you enough. So
Cool.
what else do we need to accomplish here today? Yeah, I think we're
I think we're good.
okay.
How was the moose hunt, Jessica?
I got one.
All right.
On day 4, yeah, first thing in the morning. So it was a
Cool.
successful harvest. Yeah, it was really fun.
Great.
But thank you.
Thanks. All right, I'll take a motion to end this special board meeting.
So moved?
Second,
All in favor? Do I need to take a vote on that, Jonathan?
You're muted, John.
Oh, why not?
Vote yes or vote no?
John, you were muted.
Yes.
Oh,
There you go.
sorry, I didn't realize I was muted, Aaron. So if you want to do a formal vote, you got to do the roll call. But I think as chair, you know, unless someone doubts it, you can call the meeting adjourned.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and adjourn this meeting at 1:30. Thank you, everyone, for your participation in this process, and we look forward to the next steps when Design Lab comes back. Have a great day.
thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
You too.
See ya.
Bye.
Jess, can you call me?